What is going on, everybody? We are back once again with another edition of Wrestling Republic's daily broadcast. It is Thursday, April 11th. Shoddy's almost back. The Tuesday Night Delight Monster shout out. We will see him soon. And it's a throwback Thursday. You all know what that means, but oh, what a night. It all went down last night. We're going to have to talk about this. Craziness. They showed the footage. They did it. They did it. They did it. Absolutely buck wild. No pun intended on the Young Bucks there. I'm going to need, of course, the head of opinions here joining me on today's show. Anthony Ricciardi, how are you on this fine Throwback Thursday, my friend?
I'm doing well. It's wild to me that a week ago I was at WWE World and you were trying to hold down the fort of Throwback, being the one OG hosting that thing. But I'm glad that I'm back and I'm looking forward to covering it. And if I'm going to come back for a Throwback, no hotter topic than our first one.
Absolutely, dude. I mean, the Throwback's big. We've got all kinds of stuff to discuss. Dude, let's get right into it. Let's talk about the big one. I mean, we've got all kinds of comments already. Instagram is going absolutely wild. We've got beep, beep, boop, boop. I love that. From Don't Say the F Word podcast. That cracks me up. That's hilarious. He said, yeah, Edge had a good match. Crazy. Isaiah PXGH said AEW or not the WCW, they're not on the same level. Show no class. Punk proved everyone right. Also, Ospreay, I lost some respect for him. Ooh. Harsh words early in the show, but we're going to get into it. It's not all about necessarily that, but it is all about this Punk footage. We've got a bunch of comments over here on YouTube from our good friend of the show, David Modge. He added that the footage was freaking awesome. It showed how cool the Young Bucks are now, making an angle about FTR with the whole all-in backstage footage thing. That's an opinion there as well. Of course, he said Matt and Nick are awesome. So Bucks fan David Modge did not see that coming. He's also got his twos up for Shoddy and for Thursday. Yeah, it's crazy. And then he also added, we did it. I was so happy to see the footage. That is one thing I can definitely agree with, Anthony, right? Mm-hmm. I was fired up to see this footage. Absolutely beside myself. Super curious. How do you not want to know? But like all of things like this, it wasn't what we wanted it to be. I don't think it was what anyone wanted it to be. Mm-hmm. And I do totally understand there's a ton of people out there right now saying, look, CM Punk said what happened. Sure, they showed the footage. It was close. It was a nice recount. I don't know that anybody came out of this looking terribly better or terribly worse than they did before. I don't think it made anyone look great, right? Punk throws a slap, and then, Punk's not getting held back as Jack Perry's getting dragged away by Samoa Joe, right? It's, I mean, he swung first. He did. He swung first, like he said. Pushed him
first, yes.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I mean, it was one of those things that, and we got another comment here from our good friend Numero One Superfly, great friend of the show, said hello. Just saying it now that Tony Khan should have realized it was a terrible idea. I don't know that it was the worst idea, because at the end of the day, we can't keep asking about it now. We've seen it. It's out there. It's over. It's behind us. And so that underlying what really happened thing is done. Today is going to be the worst day of this when it comes to the fodder about that. So I'm not going to overly trash it. Did I think it was the classiest move, the smartest? No. What if I was CM Punk, would I have gone on Ariel Helwani's show for an hour and aired my laundry there either? Probably not either. And so I don't know that anyone is fully at fault here or anyone's totally right. Anthony, you're the head of opinions, and this is one of the most opinion-centric topics we've ever had on the history of the daily broadcast.
Yeah.
Well, I have to toss it to you and get your opinion on this. It's crazy. It's crazy how big of a story it is.
Yeah, no matter what I say, I'm going to be buried by somebody for my opinion on this. I know that's a guarantee. When they made the announcement they were going to do this, my first thought was, why now? It's really not a smart move. If the footage disproved what Punk said happened, okay, I could see you doing it to as a self-defense mechanism. However, the footage confirmed exactly what Punk said happened. So you really didn't damage him. You didn't really get revenge on him because the people that hate Punk still hate Punk. The people that like Punk still like Punk. The fact that they showed that footage and that audience in that arena was still chanting CM Punk tells me it didn't do what they thought it was going to do. The fact that the two biggest trends after showing that footage was CM Punk and WCW 2000 clearly was not the direction they were going for. AEW's problem is they can't move on. I get it, Punk talked about it, but he hadn't talked about it prior, and he was asked. And I don't think he really said anything too defamatory there. He said he wished them the best. Now, we've said before, AEW really doesn't function the same way as WWE, TNA, New Japan. Their focus is to turn a profit. AEW's, the accusation has always been on Tony Khan is it's a fun project for him. He's got money. That's not his source of income. So if it turns a profit, great, but he's having fun doing it. And I don't fault him for that. I don't. If I had that kind of money, sure, have fun with it. Do what you want to do. But I think showing that footage was very petty. It's 8 months out, move on, turning it into trying to turn it now into a quasi angle of going, we were distracted. I don't buy it 8 months out. Like even if you would have used it at the time, okay, maybe 8 months out, all of a sudden it doesn't hold. I don't see the logic other than popping the rating one more time using CM Punk. I don't really get it. Even Punk himself posted a thing online making fun of it. I don't think AEW or whoever came up with it, whether it was the Bucks, whether it was Tony Khan, whether it was somebody else backstage, at the end of the day, the buck stops with Tony Khan. Same way anything that airs on WWE TV stops at Paul Levesque.
Right.
You have to take responsibility for that.
For sure.
A lot of ways, this moment was essentially the equivalent of, and Clark, you'll know this because we did take it to the table with Chaos. This was apparently like Tony Khan's NWA Coke spot, where everyone thought this is a bad idea, and they went, no, we're doing this anyway. And it ended badly for them. I don't really think they got sympathy for themselves.
I gotta say,
I don't think it helped.
I hear your point there. I hear your point. And the comments are completely divided, right? CM Punk looks bad. Yeah. AEW looks bad. CM Punk looks bad. AEW looks bad. This is different to me than other times where we've seen AEW go head-to-head with WWE. CM Punk on that MMA Hour podcast, and shout out Ariel Helwani, great journalist, asked a lot of questions, a lot of history with him. I have my own personal opinions on him
It was a smart
from following him in mixed martial arts, but they did have a very candid conversation where Punk said out loud, "I'm not supposed to say it, but," and there was a lot of qualifiers in that convo as well. The one positive that's out of this is now we've seen the footage. Now we can all move on. It's over.
Hopefully that is the end of it at this point. I had said to you probably off air, but I said, I think Punk, if he's allowed to talk about it, would talk about it like one time. And I thought it would have been on Austin's podcast. That's where I thought they were going to do. I thought Broken Skull, that's where they were going to do it. That would have made a
lot of sense.
I thought that's where they were going to do it. But Ariel makes sense for a couple reasons. One, doing it Mania week. The most eyes are on the product. If you're going to do it, you do it when you get the most publicity. You do it one time. That's all you talk about it. And yeah, let's be real. Him doing it with Ariel, somebody who's had his own personal issues with Tony Khan. Yeah, that's a jab. I get it. But at the same point, I don't really think he said anything too outlandish and things that fans have said that like AEW's focus isn't typically the same thing as, let's say, WWE or other people. You know, they are very, fantasy book, but the focus on getting people in seats has been a struggle for them. Let's be real. That has been a struggle.
Right. And so we got an interesting comment over here from Isaiah PXGH over on Instagram. Said, do you think that AEW's reputation has gone down in your opinion? I think over the course of the last year and a half since Triple H has taken over without question. But I also want to address, I find this fascinating, Anthony, and it bothers me. And I wonder, and this may just be speculation.
Yeah.
But we're so used to the person in charge of WWE, the company that has been rolling this whole time.
Yeah.
Even if you look at WCW with Bischoff being the face of the booking
for a long time, yeah,
has been physical, has been physical, has been in the ring, has been a wrestler in some way. Like Eric Bischoff isn't a wrestler, but he karate combat.
Yeah.
And he suited up and got in the ring. That's not Tony Khan. And the fascination with how Tony Khan looks, saying he feared for his life, is in some ways to me is unfair. He's not a wrestler.
Here's the thing. The thing I found interesting with the footage, once they said they were going to show the footage, one thing that anybody that knows, surveillance camera footage doesn't have sound. So we knew we weren't getting sound with this in real terms. Like I knew that. But if you look at the footage, when he's talking to Jack, there's several people around. No one looks even the least bit concerned of anything. Nobody's going, is something going on. Until it got physical, no one did anything. As far as like the monitors falling, this and that, like, listen, Tony Khan saying he feared for his life, I am not going to disparage it because I don't know what was going through his head. But when he initially said it, and this is just my thought on it, sounded very legalese what the lawyers told him to say that would fall in line with termination for cause. I'm not saying he didn't do it. He didn't fear for his life, but it sounded very lawyer-y to me, and I could be wrong. But like the problem that they have is they have been compared to WCW times, but not the good kind at times.
Right.
And WCW 2000 trending and people looking at the footage and comparing, because people are like Zapruder films now, showing like footage of Tony Schiavone at Bash at the Beach 2000 with that embarrassing thing with Russo and Hogan. And it's like this. And he did it again last night after the footage aired. That does not help. And I don't know whose idea it was to air it, but I don't think it was a good idea. Like, I think it does more harm than good. The fact that you showed it and the audience is chanting for Punk. The other thing that makes no sense to me is this. Jack Perry's off in New Japan doing this scapegoat gimmick based on, like, he's been banished since the whole incident. Well, he ripped up his AEW contract. So in theory, shouldn't he be opposed to Tony Khan, the EVPs, everybody in the company? why are the Bucks then going, he's the victim? Like, those two things don't gel.
For bringing back Jack as a heel, that was one of the few bright spots I saw, I will say.
If you can do it. Like, I mean, if you could successfully pull this off, the problem is AEW has been doing stories, but they've fallen flat. The Devil storyline went nowhere. Like realistically, that really did not land the way it should have. They're going to get a boost, presumably when MJF is able to come back, in theory. But you have to put these stories in place to make people compelled. If last night's show was to motivate me or anybody to buy Dynasty, it didn't happen last night.
No,
last night's show did not motivate me in the least to wanting to see Bucks FTR 4 based on the story. You know what I mean? Just based on the layer they're including.
But I will also say we no longer have to deal with where's the tape, what really happened. That question's out the window. Mm-hmm. And to kind of put that behind us in a weird way, my hope is, for the sake of, because I want all pro wrestling promotions to succeed, right? I want to see great pro wrestling across the board, not just in WWE, but in AEW, in TNA, in New Japan, Progress, GCW. I want to see everybody succeed. I want this whole industry to succeed.
Everybody's got to move on from that moment.
And so everybody can move on now from that moment that we've seen it. And to me, it's like sometimes you got to take a small loss to finally move forward. And that's my hope, because I agree with you. If we're looking at it inside of a vacuum in the present, right? And not that, and I'm not claiming like you were looking at it inside of a vacuum, but like, right? If we're looking at it just right this second, goodness gracious, it looks horrendous, right? It's silly. It's kitty jokes, but it is an opportunity to move on. And Matt Williams has a great point here. He said, never seen an angle like this in wrestling before. Further blurs the line between real and fake. I thought FTR's promo after the footage was perfect too. So that's a positive as well. I thought FTR's promo was very good. Very good. And there are some positives that can come from this. Was it the highest point that we've seen from AEW? No, it was on the low end of the scale. Mm-hmm. Not even close. But we need to move on from that. Now we've got another one here from Ultra Ego Wisdom, and he's been asking some really good questions in the chat too. If AEW is moving on, why did they literally have Will Ospreay go off on Triple H? And do not ruin my segue. Do not ruin my segue, Anthony. No.
Do your thing.
Our next topic tonight.
You're the one that read the comment. How am I ruining your segue?
I know, I'm totally kidding. It's Will Ospreay's promo, and why in the world did he go after Triple H? That's what I wanted to ask you so badly. I have the exact same question, because seriously, it didn't make sense. This Triple H quote that they're talking about happened on the Pat McAfee show. Mm-hmm. This didn't happen on WWE programming, just like the Punk stuff didn't happen on WWE programming. So I didn't have a problem with that being addressed, but also it did not feel like it was about Will Ospreay.
That's the biggest thing. Everyone assumed it was about Ospreay because he made this comment. But keep in mind, AEW signed multiple free agents, which they keep pointing out that they signed Okada, they signed Ospreay, they signed Monet. Like they're making this point. To me, Hunter's comment was an overarching comment of, in general, about young talent. For me, and it's funny because I had this conversation with one of our writers, Archie, when Triple H made this comment. And he asked me the same thing. Why do I think he said it if he was referring to Ospreay? And I said, in a weird way, I think it was to motivate, to light a fire under him, to prove him wrong. I mean, we've seen that in wrestling before. Go out, prove yourself. Prove that you prove me wrong, that you are willing to put in the work, the effort. I mean, that's the thing. Running WWE, being in WWE, it's unlike any other wrestling promotion. It's the biggest promotion in the world, and you pretty much you have a burden when you're in that promotion. It's not just, oh, I'm working Raw. You're constantly under a microscope, like nowhere else, right, Clark? I mean, AEW, no one else can compare to how media focused WWE gets. Like, I mean,
Right.
they are, when you're the number one company, you're going to get that focus, and they've always been good at getting talent out there on different shows, whether
Yes.
McAfee or whatever. They've always been that. If anything, I think it was more of a lighting a fire. Like, you look at somebody like Cody Rhodes. He left, proved himself. Drew McIntyre. They released him. He went out. He reinvented himself. You look at somebody like Matt Cardona. He was looked as a low mid Carter. Now he's the quote unquote king of the indies. Like, that's the thing. Like, I think it was more of a comment of a, come on, kid, prove me wrong. You know, prove that you are the guy.
See, I didn't.
If it was about him, I'm just saying.
At the time he said it, that's the thing is, I had to think back in hindsight after watching the promo last night.
Yeah.
At the time he said it, I didn't think it was about Will.
And the other thing is, here's the other problem that AEW had in this situation. Like, I get doing the insider stuff, and you know, the people that are smart, the people that are watching everything know all this. There's a portion of the audience that have no idea what he was talking about because they're in this bubble or they're first time watchers. They have no idea who he's referring to. And there's no real payoff there. It's not like there's going to be an altercation between Triple H and Will Ospreay next week to continue this. You know what I mean?
Yes. And over on Instagram, we got 2 comments about this specifically too. One from Isaiah PXGH, which is, I think there may have been a slight link to Okada with the amount of money he apparently got for signing with AEW. That's interesting. And then also Brian Carter with a YR at the end. If I remember correctly, I think, all caps, he was talking about MJF. That was what I thought.
Honestly, he could have been talking about any of the young, like looking at the age-wise. It could have been Ospreay, could have been MJF. But in real fairness, you and I, Clark, not to get into dirt sheet stuff, right. You and I don't really think he actually ever hit the free agent market to even have a conversation.
No,
with
I don't think that happened.
No, but I'm saying, like, that's why I don't think it's MJF, only because it wasn't like he was a free agent and chose to stay with AEW. We don't actually think he actually ever hit the market, despite the bidding war hype and all that stuff. As far as we know, he never really hit the market. Technically, we don't even know if he's still with AEW, but under the presumption that he's still there, we don't actually think he hit the free agent market. So it's either, it could be Ospreay, it could be Okada, it could be Monet, it could just be a vague, overarching
to be honest, personally, I thought he was talking about Jack Perry. I genuinely thought that he was talking about.
Well, Jack was never a free agent.
Technically not, but for some reason, the way that it was phrased about like the scheduling and stuff, I thought that that's actually who he was talking about. Ironically enough, because I watched the show live.
Yeah, I think so. I think a lot of people looked at Ospreay only because, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think he had to move to the States, and it is a limiter schedule than he would have had with WWE. I could be wrong.
Yes.
But I believe that's the case. So that's why I think a lot of people thought it was Ospreay. And realistically, of the 3, assuming it's just the 3, Okada, Ospreay, and Monet.
Yes.
I think out of those, Ospreay would be the most likely if it was directed at. You know what? It could have been about Jay White. I mean, he signed there previously. Like, I mean, it could have been any number of people, or it could have just been vague. It could be either one.
Totally. And we've got a bunch more comments on Instagram, but we also have, first off, we've got Wrestling Republic's own WrestleManiacs, Jordy with Let's Go Kings. Let's go, Jordy. You're the man. Thanks, you Jordy, for tuning in as always. What is up? Miss Butterfly 31277 said, I have no sound. IDK if it's just me. And can someone over on Instagram confirm that you guys can hear us? That would be awesome. Just make sure that we're good.
We're silent.
I do believe that there is sound over on YouTube and all the other platforms, and I'm pretty confident it's on Instagram, but I just to make sure, that one always scares me with the no sound thing. We had some tech issues over the weekend. Okay, wait, I got a yes. Thank you so much for the confirmation there, Isaiah. That I appreciate that. And Jordy can hear us as well. Okay, Perfect. We're good to go. So, but yeah, we've got a bunch more comments here on YouTube as well. We've got Jordy added. It's delightful. He's the best. All love
Thank you,
Jordy.
Jordy.
Again, I say this, Tony Khan has proven multiple times he's not a real boss. Perfect example is when he allowed Sammy Guevara to main event after he got into a fight backstage with Andrade. You know, I hear you, but I'll also say he is Isaac, by the way, is Isaiah. It's Isaac. I'm sorry, not Isaiah. Isaac. That's my fault. Over in the comments. But I do want to address Ultra Ego Wisdom's comment here. I hear you. I get it. Now, one thing I will say is we're looking at a new boss. We're looking at a new boss, a young boss. He's going to make mistakes. This is a young company. We got to give him a little bit of grace. I don't like the straight line thinking he's not good. He's all good or all bad is almost never right. Right? Nobody's all good or all bad. He's got to do some things right to be in this position.
I think Tony Khan's biggest problem is, like you said, the inexperience. As a fan, he thinks he can book.
For sure.
You know,
so do I, right?
Exactly. But you don't have the kind of money to run a promotion.
I can only imagine the pressure.
At the moment. But to me, in that situation, I think you need to get somebody that has experience to bounce those things off of, to fill the void that you lack. You know, you need somebody. Obviously, you're not going to get a Paul Heyman, but you need somebody that has years of experience to kind of just bounce off of. Whether that's Bryan Danielson, that's a possibility. But I think you need to start leaning more on the people that know, that have actual wrestling business experience, and not just I've watched it my whole life.
I agree. And this is one of those things where it's like, right, over the years, we can almost always sit back and think, okay, look, like, they could have done this. So-and-so could have done this, that, and the other. And Ultra Ego Wisdom, to his credit, monster shout out. I love this comment. He's good at booking fantastic matches. I'll give him that. Exactly, right? It's like, it's not all good. It's not all bad. I think part of the reason that we look at Tony Khan and are so critical is because we want it to continue to push. Because I think we're all aware of the fact that it has definitely pushed the WWE to the greatness that we've seen over the last 4 years.
Listen,
it played a role.
CM Punk is not in WWE now if the AEW run doesn't happen.
Totally.
Straight up, that's not the case. Tony Khan's biggest problem is Tony Khan at times. Those press conferences he's done and the Twitter fights don't help. And that's he needs to get out of his own way at times. And I think the product as a whole, it needs to focus more on storytelling. It goes in too many different directions. We're doing rankings. We're not doing rankings. This person gets a match. Like, there needs to be consistency going forward. And that's a problem. WWE now has the consistency with Triple H and Paul Levesque in charge. It didn't have that for a while.
Yes.
Now it's steering the right direction. AEW needs to do the same thing, because healthy promotions leads to a healthy business. WWE is successful. AEW could be successful as well. They're not going to compete with WWE realistically
yet. That's years down the road. That's years down the road, though. I mean, look, you got to build. You have to start somewhere. And I don't think we're in a scenario where this could turn into a 45-minute conversation if we do this, right? Where it's like,
with the two of us, yes.
Like, it's like, look, business-wise, right? You got to start somewhere, and we can start talking Monopoly and go absolutely buck wild here. We do have a bunch of really good comments here, too. And a new friend of the show, Isaac, will not mess your name up again. Isaac PXGH over on Instagram said, do you think he only thought of the ratings and not the fan reaction / backlash? Dude, I think he thought of everything. It's super hard to project with the lack of experience.
I gotta be, if I was guessing, I think he went off of emotion that he was mad. He was mad at what Punk said. Personally.
Probably. But that's a distinct possibility as well. And then Ethan Goldstein 8 also added they had Regal. That was a big miss. Losing Regal.
And not using him.
A level head.
Not using him behind the scenes and mainly just using those on screen was a major mistake.
Totally. IanJ.Riv agreed with your sentiments there, Anthony, as well on Instagram. And then our good buddy Jordy added, "I blame Bill Goldberg," which cracked me up. I had to read that one.
So would Bret Hart.
That is too funny. We've also got Isaac. Did AEW jump the gun on the Ospreay promo? Yeah, probably. He's back in there with that one too. And then Zach Simone 28 added, AEW needs a really big storyline people can get behind. I agree, but isn't it also Swerve Strickland? And that was what was funky about last night's episode.
The
Swerve
problem
Strickland is that storyline.
The problem is it got overshadowed by the two gigantic misses of the airing the footage and the Ospreay. That's the only focus from the show. Most people online, that's the focus.
And then finally we're done with the business conversation, but Jordy, always the man in the comments. This one I loved. He goes, in all fairness, I know it's not the same, but back in the 90s, you would never have believed that the UFC would be on par with WWE. So I guess we never know. I love that. I love that. I love the optimism. That's what it's all about. Jordan Kirby over here added, who beats Damian for the world title. We'll talk about that.
It's a little early.
We'll talk about that on the WWE show next time for sure. Maybe actually later today. Who knows? We might get into that. Who knows? And then Andy Yen added CM Punk versus Jack Perry. That's funny. It's funny. I like it. Okay. Before we get into our next topics here and move on, I'm going to do a quick little shout out to our good friends over at Next Level. Because if you're messing around and looking for more wrestling content and you don't know where to find it, this is the place to go. They're our partners. They're awesome. We sent 2 people to WrestleMania Night 2, the Raw After Mania, driving service, tailgate, VIP entrance, hotel, the whole 9, dialed them in. We're giving away 2, not 1, but 2 copies of WWE's 2K24, the WrestleMania edition as well. Head to nxconnect.me/Wrestling Republic to see all of our content across all platforms, linked all in one place. Really easy. Click the link tree. You can see all of our stuff. It's awesome. The guys at Next Level are a blast. Could not be better people. This platform is super, super cool. And not only that, we've got a podcast coming out tomorrow. Shout out to Wrestling Takes Cam, my good friend, Matt Roos, Jason Hatfield, both. That show will be out tomorrow. We'll have that link somewhere for sure. It was absolutely outstanding. Thank you so much for having me as always. And yeah, go check out Next Level for sure. Logo Figs added in the comments. What's up, guys? Love the content. Thank you so much. We appreciate you. That means a ton to us always. WrestleManiacs goes, man, in my resignation, that retails at $100, man. I'm going to enter instead. Totally worth the gamble. That cracks me up. Love that. Absolutely. I hear you there. Loco Lad added, AEW is seriously fumbled and lost. I think for now, right? Can't win every week, but if you play every game, it's not about winning every week necessarily. I totally agree with that, though, that they definitely lost this week. Andy Yen added W channel. We appreciate that so much, Andy. That means the world to us. And then Adam Not 22. That's a great username. That's hilarious. They most certainly will regret this. I totally hear that, my friend. And thank you again for tuning into the show. It means a bunch to us always. Okay, let's continue to talk about last night's Dynamite. Then we'll get into, you were obviously at Mania. We're going to briefly discuss your live in the building memories from Mania and get into our, as promised, throwback topic. Isaac PXGH also added over there on Instagram, top tier comment. That means a lot. Thank you so much. Let's, though, get into just a couple more matches here from Dynamite. Mariah May and Anna Jay. Mariah May is surprising me every time out. She looks outstanding out there. Mariah May, they've got something with. And I think, to me, most logical person to take the title off of Toni Storm. By far. Do you agree in any way? No? Maybe? Yes?
I think in a lot of ways it reminds me of the Mickie James Trish story from back in the day, where Mickie was obsessed with Trish, and eventually, they feuded. I think that's the direction this goes. I think the reason Toni Storm is so successful and so compelling is that the character's interesting. The presentation's interesting. AEW needs to do more of that. They need characters and they need storytelling. And it needs to feel different. If they truly want to be the alternative, the product needs to feel different. If you're going to push the women in AEW, you need to actually push them. They can't be doing 5-minute matches. Like, you really need to get behind them if that's where you want to go with this. Toni Storm has been the highlight of that division, at least for the past several months.
Oh, yes. Without a doubt. Toni Storm, the work has been outstanding. It's cool. Like, she's painting her own pictures at this point in a way that are absolutely excellent. I love them. Andy Yen added road to 1K subs. I love that. Yes, welcome. You're on the road. We're on the way. We're gonna get there. And then Loco Lad added, do you think talent will be leaving AEW now after this? I don't think like it's a max exodus or anything like that. No.
I don't think it's one of those situations where, like, you aired the footage, I'm out. Now, if somebody was on the fence and they knew WWE wanted them, maybe they would go, you know what? This guy doesn't know what he's doing. They seem to know how to cook a meal. I'll go over there. It's possible, but I don't think it would be a direct going, that's it. Well, my deal's up. I'm out the door over this. I don't think it could be a final straw, but I don't think it was the main one. Yeah.
And I love this. By the way, we're getting blown up with comments. We really appreciate this, guys.
Yeah,
this is
absolutely.
awesome. This is happy Thursday. How about it? This is great.
I come back and this is all good.
I love it. This is awesome. We've got Antonio PHX 81 with wanna fix AEW. TK needs to leave AEW. That's a tough equation.
There's no AEW without Tony Khan.
Yeah.
I've said before, and I've said this to Clark, AEW's greatest strength and biggest weakness is Tony Khan.
Yes. It's the total juxtaposition there. And I agree. And this one is really great. Adam Not 22 echoed your sentiment from earlier, which is they need to buckle down and focus on themselves. Tony should hire someone to help with booking and someone to deal with the locker room. We need AEW to be good and around for a long time. Yes, yes, yes. Not to start yes chance, but if we were going to, yes, yes, yes. Adam Not 22 also added loving the show so far. By the way, thank you so much. We appreciate that. ODG the man added, after CM Punk's comments at the All Out Media Scrum, he has more credibility to it. In some ways, yes. In some ways, yeah, he told the truth, but it's not like he looks super cool, right?
Punk is one of those people, and I don't mean to cut you off, Clark, but Punk is one of those people, Phil Brooks, Punk, whatever you want to call him.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, he admits he's not that likable of a guy. He's not perfect, and no one is. But, like, for me, I've always been a fan of the CM Punk character. Phil Brooks, a person, I don't know. Should he have laid his hands on Jungle Boy? No. Was there mitigating circumstances? Was he instigated? It's entirely possible. I'm not saying that. Same thing with the media, the Brawl Out promo at the press conference. Was it unprofessional? Yes. Is it Punk's greatest promo of all time? Probably. Because it was real and it was authentic and it was frustrated. And how many times, Clark, you and I have dropped those lines at various points?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was classic. It's one of those that's super interesting. We've also got Loco Lad in the comments here, by the way, too, with, yes, Mariah May with her new ally for women's champion. I'm with you there. But then he added, MJF will leave for WWE for sure. I don't think not so fast. I think not anytime soon. I do think eventually.
No. I think at the end of the day, MJF, I don't think is somebody that will be wrestling in his 40s. I think MJF's intention is to check off boxes and to possibly go Hollywood, possibly do other things.
Yep.
At the end of the day, you need to remember.
Yep.
He is a kid from New York. New York's territory was WWE. That's what he grew up on.
Totally.
So at the end of the day, as much as people go, oh, it's a dead dream for wrestlers. No. The ones that say they don't dream of wrestling at least one time on a Mania are people that probably know they're not getting to a Mania. MJF is somebody that if he wanted to wrestle on a Mania, there'd be enough interest, and there just happens to be the new face of the company that is his biggest cheerleader. So I am pretty sure that if MJF wants to wrestle on a Mania, he's going to wrestle on a Mania someday.
If there's one thing I'd say about Maxwell Jacob Friedman, it's you can put his name right now on a marquee and sell tickets at almost anywhere.
AEW's greatest rivalry was him and Punk because they were able to talk.
Honestly,
they were able to do
AEW's like top 10 rivalries.
Mm-hmm.
I think like 7 of the 10 are max.
Mm-hmm.
If you really think about it.
Oh, yeah.
And that's before the title reign, before all of that.
Yes.
And that's one of those things that like you really cannot take away from the guy at all. Local Lad had a great show, guys. We appreciate that so much. Logo Figs added or is that Logo Figs? Sorry, Logo Figs. CM first guy to be in Raw, SmackDown, Hall of Fame, WrestleMania, and AEW in 1 week, not even wrestling. That's actually hilarious.
And the fact
that is a great point.
The fact that he's gotten CM Punk chance at all of these things, and he didn't have to put on his wrestling boots once.
Totally.
Speaks volumes.
Totally. We've also got new friend of the show, Isaac PXGH, over here on Instagram with, I think there are some big egos that don't mix well. I think it was just a case of big egos colliding in relation to Punk and Jack Perry. Dude, spot on. Spot on. Absolutely, I agree with that.
I think one of the most interesting things with this is, as far as we know, could have happened, as far as we know, Punk, as far as we all know, has never had an incident backstage in WWE during either tenure, physical or otherwise. The fact that it happened multiple times in AEW makes you wonder what exactly is that backstage situation like to drive this guy who's a professional. And I'm not making excuses for Punk, but at a certain point, you reach a breaking point if you're being undermined constantly. If you think you're trying to help this company get to the next level, and you are one of the only people in that company that's actually been at that level, and you're being undermined by people that have never touched that level, I could see you getting frustrated.
Totally. I get it too. And our friend Isaac again added, he's on fire, by the way, over on Instagram for us with MJF versus Adam Cole. Would be great if they can get rid of the faction behind Cole. I agree with that. I just want Cole and Max one-on-one. I don't want shenanigans.
It's such a shame that like a lot of these people that came from WWE to AEW are lesser in AEW. I mean, other than Swerve and like Tony Storm, they feel less. Adam Copeland feels less. Jay White is a shell of what he was with New Japan.
So true.
Ospreay, in the ring, he's still Ospreay. On the mic, these promos have not been good. At least I don't think. Monet, big splash when she debuted. Now, I don't know. Like, it's this weird because she hasn't wrestled yet. They haven't stuck her in a match. It's weird. These people feel lesser than they did, and it shouldn't be the case. And I don't know why. I would say it's the booking, but I don't know. It's very weird how people are feeling less than they should. I don't get it.
It is bizarre. Okay, we've got one more comment that I want to read from Instagram before we finally get into our last two topics.
Yes.
As promised. But we've got Fast John B asked, is it a coincidence that Tony Khan decided to put Dustin Rhodes in the title picture right after Cody won the WWE Championship?
And against
No.
a Samoan on top
The
of
answer
it?
is no, it's not a coincidence. Not at all.
So you have a Rhodes battling a champion who's Samoan, who also is named Joe. Yeah, in the same week.
Yes.
Not a coincidence at all.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay. Adam 22, not 22, added, dead on, brother. Should you choke your coworker? No, probably not. Does it make sense how it came to that? 100% yes.
Yes.
Loco Lad added a question that we could probably do a second hour on, which is,
this could be its own show. Yeah.
The answer is, I think pro wrestling's had talent that's wasted. Mm-hmm. The question is, do you guys agree that AEW has a lot of wasted talent, men and women?
Yes, and so does WWE.
I would say there's wasted talent, kind of across the board in pro wrestling over like the last 25 years.
Yes.
I mean, dude, I would start with Bobby Lashley.
You have this much TV time and this much talent.
Yeah.
There's only so much you could put on.
And then now come the king asked, hey, how's the guy in the red hat feeling about the WrestleMania main event result? Follower of the show. I love it. I loved it. Come on. It's fun. That's why we're here. I love pro wrestling. I wouldn't be talking about it if I didn't. It was pro wrestling 101. It was history. It was awesome. Mm-hmm. How in the world could I complain about that? Who am I to be that guy? I had a lot of fun joking about Cody Rhodes' tie clips and thinking he was a little corny along the way, but it had nothing to do with that. It's not about, I don't dislike Cody Rhodes. I always did want him to finish the story. If you go back and watch the history of me on the show, I always went out of my way to mention, I want him to finish the story and tell the whole thing. I enjoyed the outcome. Yeah, absolutely. I did is the answer to that question. But speaking of enjoying the outcome, we had a guy that was in the building for the outcome, a dude who it meant the world to, and that's you. So before we get to our throwback topic, you are the man, Anthony. You were there. The story was completed. What did that feel like besides the goosebumps?
You know, it's funny. Before I get into that, and I may be ruining Clark's heel gimmick here, because I know he gets a lot of hate at different points on the site, and it's unfair. I could tell you that I went through something personally last year that was very rough for me. He stood up for me, and he made sure that I had an awesome time at Mania last year. And I wanted to see Cody win that title, and it didn't happen. He had my back, and I just want to say that. But this year, seeing Cody in the main event one more time, nothing I wanted to see more than to see Cody Rhodes win that title in person. To do it for Dusty. A story that started in 1977. And by the way, somebody left a comment to one of my videos saying didn't start in the 70s, was only 2 years ago. You clearly don't know the story. It started with Dusty being denied the title in 77. Just wanted to make that clear. So, you know, it was an awesome moment to see it. And overall, WrestleMania 40 as a whole, I may be biased because it was recently there. It is my favorite one. I think it probably may go down as the greatest of all time. That main event is so special because it's the one time a year you could mix these things. Bring in a Cena, bring in an Undertaker, have Seth come out as the Shield. It just worked as a whole. And the whole Mania experience, for people that don't know, this is the first year they did WWE World, which is sort of like a combination. The Superstore is its own separate thing, which is free. But the WWE World, they have exhibits there. So they had the Hall of Famers attire. So they had like a Paul Heyman trench coat with the hat and the badge. Bill Nakano gear and stuff like that. They had CM Punk's pipe bomb gear on display. They had things where you could get your photo taken and have yourself added to the WrestleMania poster by taking a person out. So I was able to get myself on a poster removing Seth from the tag match, for example, or whoever you wanted. You could have removed anybody, but when I chose Seth, the guy told me, goes, everyone picked Seth, which is a shame because Seth really was the MVP when you really break down everything.
Yeah.
But they had a moment which there's a mini stage there where you could do your own entrance, which was really cool. You could pick any entrance theme you wanted. They would play the music, the video would come on. I don't know if there were people you couldn't get. Like, I don't know if there were AEW people you couldn't get, but like pretty much every other one people did. But there was a really cool moment, and I told Clark this off the air on Tuesday when I was on. A kid was there in a wheelchair, motorized wheelchair. And he chose to do the Cody Rhodes entrance. And there's a long line of people waiting to go in there. I waited about an hour to do mine. No one had to ask anybody in the crowd to do this. Every single person in that crowd sang the song for this kid and cheered this kid on. It's one of those moments that, like, when people ask why you're a fan, moments like that purity of your love for professional wrestling and supporting other wrestling fans. It was one of the coolest things that I probably witnessed all weekend, and it had nothing to do directly with WrestleMania, but it was one of the coolest things. One of the moments I told Clark before getting into the Superstore, there was the line wrapped around the building before it opened. And one of the funniest things is there's a guy walking towards me, and he's fully dressed as Dusty Rhodes, 70 Dusty Rhodes, curly blonde hair. And he literally looks at the line and he starts cutting in character the Hard Times promo as he's making his way to the end of the line. I mean, things like that are just tremendous that you get to witness. And it's just, it's special. WrestleMania has a special feel. I've been to a few of them now. Clark, I think you've been to more than I have.
Dude.
Everyone has a special feel.
It's one of those where I wish I could have been there with you. Obviously,
Yeah, I know personal reasons. Yeah.
Standing circumstances and whatnot. But like, dude, that finish, the funniest part is, so like, one of the best comments we got over here on Instagram is from Now Come the King. He said, "Did you love the outcome with the eyes?" When I was talking earlier, and then he said, "You're a good spirit, brother. I love you, man. Love you too," because this was such a cool Mania. Like, as much as I joked around about Cody and all of that, for you watching that, I knew, I'm like, Anthony's in his hometown, in that building, seeing this moment, and I know how much it means to him. I know how important this is, and that, like, on top of how great all of it was, I don't care. Overbooked, shut up. Overbooked, knock it off. Knock it off. Knock it off. Knock it off. This was fun. I felt like a 10-year-old again. I didn't care. I got like 15 texts that were like, "Are you worried about everybody making fun of you for Cody losing?" I go, "No, I'm happy." I'm like, this was outstanding.
One of my favorite comments from you last year, and this is a little inside baseball for people that don't know.
Yeah.
Clark knew how disappointed I was that Cody didn't win. And he literally said to me, and you probably remember you saying this to me, "I had money on Roman, but I wanted Cody to win for you," which was, which meant a lot to me at the time. And then we figured out that they were probably going to go Rocky too, and that's exactly what they did. I do want to give one little inside baseball.
By the way, not literally money. I just
fictional monopoly money. Monopoly money,
not literal.
The minuses are the favorites. Anyway, one of the things that happened with, I went to the Undertaker one-man show, and he was going through the WrestleMania card, and he was asking people, what they wanted to see happen. And he's like, "Oh, you guys want to see Roman win?" And people were chanting for Cody. And I really thought Clark was on stage at this point, because it was a moment where Taker was like, "Oh, you want to see him finish the story?" And he was making fun. Now, knowing in hindsight that this man knows what he's doing on Sunday and he was just needling us in the crowd makes it that much better.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. No, it's the absolute truth when it comes to that.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it. We have a ton of comments to run through, and then we're gonna have to do the fastest throwback ever.
Yes.
Because we got to get this in 59 minutes. So we've got David Modge. Numero One Superfly asked, essentially, I'm going to paraphrase here. I'm sorry, Numero One, because you are a friend of the show, but basically, did you think there was a chance that it was Moxley / Ambrose coming out?
I'll be perfectly honest. And Clark, if we want to skip the throwback and just do these, we can. Since we don't.
Yeah, we can just run through the comments.
We'll do that. Honest to God, and Clark heard the audio because I had it recorded the entire time. I had no idea what was going on. I legitimately went, my exact words was, no way. Because again, they said there were going to be surprises. And when I heard the Shield music, I'm like, could they have pulled this off? Could they have made some type of bizarre deal and got Ambrose for a one-off? It was funny because earlier in the night, I did say to my buddy when Seth was out there wrestling the match, I went, he dyed his hair blonde. That's interesting. But again, he was wearing wild gear. I didn't put two and two together. Then when I heard the Shield music, I went, that's why he did it. But I was looking around. I had no idea.
I was watching with Carter, Crisp, not Carnett, at the time. This was pre-outfit. Yeah. And I looked him dead in the eye and go, it's not, is it? And he goes, no. And we both were sitting and stood up still, just in case. In case it was.
Honestly, I will say this. I did think the final person was going to be Austin. I did not think it was going to be Taker. So it is great. And Clark's heard the recording. I'm when Taker came out, I'm like, no,
goosebumps.
It is the most, I can honestly say, I'm pretty even keel when I watch.
Oh yeah.
I marked out like I was a kid again with the just pure nostalgia.
I didn't expect to. The one that I marked out the hardest for, because Carter made fun of me because I watched both shows with Carter. Yeah, I marked out for Sammy winning. I jumped up and down like a little kid. It was
honestly, it was the smartest thing to have the underdogs win in Philly. If you're going to get the best response, the most underdog fan base that there probably is at this point, the synonymous even with fictional Rocky, the patron saint of Philadelphia, it made the most sense. Yeah. Sammy winning, Cody winning. I mean, just the visual, they nailed that. So you wanted the fans to go home happy. And that was always a disagreement with Clark and I. Clark's like, let Roman win, get the boos. I don't think that was needed. It's the first Mania after TKO bought it. WWE had a massive black cloud due to the person who shall not be named. If you end that with the most wholesome moment, and I know somebody had called it, this was WWE's Endgame, like the Marvel movie. This was the end. It was perfect. I really don't think it's storytelling wise. At the end of the day, I think this is the best story that's ever been told.
An absolute
long-term story. I think this is the best story that's ever been told.
They did nail it. They nailed it. They truly did nail it. Okay, seriously, before we do take it home,
yes,
we promise you DDP throwback.
Yes.
Maybe next Thursday. We might just do a special 15-minute segment later and release it for you guys on YouTube.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And send the link out just because I feel like we kind of owe you one at this point. I cannot thank everyone enough for tuning into this show. Tink22_54, another friend of the show, added, I absolutely love y'all on these lives. Thank you so much for always tuning in. We appreciate it so much. Loco Lad, new viewer of the show, added, I'm 47. I've been watching pro wrestling since the late 80s. Loved watching Hacksaw, Coca Beware, Steamboat, Dusty Rhodes, Sting, Sid Vicious, Andre, etc. Dude, I love that. I'm 32. Anthony's in his 30s. I forget, 9, 8. I don't know. We try not to do the math necessarily.
I'm older than
every
Clark.
time.
Let's just leave it at that.
But he's older than me, technically. Less bald. He's got more hair than me.
I have hair.
For sure. He's got hair. I don't. But that does bring us to the end of the show. If you haven't already liked and subscribed, please do. It means the world. Thank you, everyone that commented and tuned in. I wish I could get to all of the comments today. Have an awesome Thursday, and we'll see everybody soon on Wrestling Republic's daily broadcast. Thank you so much.